ग्लोबल स्किल डेवलपमेंट मिशन में आपका स्वागत है।
Okay, there's a few more things that I want to show you here. I want to show you now how to create selections based on color rather than based on shape. So far, we've been working with ovals and circles and squares and rectangles. What about making selections based on color? Well, we're going to get into this, but the first thing that I need to do is, well, my file is getting a little messy here. Is there a way for me to take what I have here inside Photoshop and take it back to the last time that I saved it, the last saved version of the file? Do you recall anything like that? Remember, we have the handy revert, the safety net underneath the file menu. So I'm going to choose File Revert, and as you can see, that takes me all the way back to the original document. Okay, so like I say, all the way along, we've been working with ovals and rectangles and so on. What I now want to do is I want to create a selection based on color. Now, this is really handy for oddball shapes. Something like this curved, I don't know what that is, a bracket or a brace of some sort, that guy, or maybe this guy, or this nut and bolt that I had pointed out earlier on. I'm going to use this nut and bolt as an example. I'm going to see if I can select this guy properly. When I try to make a selection inside Photoshop, whatever it is that I'm trying to tackle, again, maybe it's a special effect or some kind of a color adjustment, I kind of run through a process of elimination in my own head. And I start from simplest to most difficult. I go, all right, could I use the rectangular marquee tool on this guy? Well, maybe. Could I use the oval or the elliptical marquee tool? Definitely not on something like this. Well, what else could I use? Well, I could try and select this guy based on color, because this guy is generally the same color, and he's kind of a wacky shape too. Well, it's all about this tool here, the quick selection tool, and I think you're really going to like this guy. Go ahead and select this guy. This guy allows us to actually paint a selection, believe it or not. So I have this oval or circular cursor now appearing on screen. All I'm going to do with this guy is just single click anywhere inside the bolt there, and I now get some marching ants, just like that. It's kind of like, poof, marching ants. We now have a selection to work with. Here's the cool part, is I can continue clicking and dragging, painting my selection until the entire object gets selected, something like this. Okay, and boom, there's my entire object. Awesome stuff. Now, let me try this guy out on a few other objects. I'm going to deselect, Controller-Command-D on my keyboard. And maybe I'll go after something like this sort of thin washer or bracket or brace or whatever the heck it is. I'm just going to start clicking and dragging, and pretty quickly you'll have a selection there. I also got the drop shadow in there. The flash on my camera created a bit of a drop shadow on this guy. But in any regard, there you go. It's all just a matter of clicking and dragging with this guy. Now, this piece of metal here is going to be interesting because he's got some rust on him, but there's also some chrome on him as well. So let's see what we get here. If I start clicking and dragging, there we go. I'm literally painting in this selection, something like that. So for yourself, for your own projects, give this guy a try. Maybe you'll find that this guy is going to give you much better results depending on the task or really the object that it is that you're trying to select. Okay? Now, a few options here for you. If I move my eyeballs up to the options bar, there we go. The options bar has changed once again for us. I wanted to show you this drop down here, the brush drop down. When we're working with Photoshop's painting tools, we can do things like adjust the brush size, the brush spacing, the hardness, and so on. And it's all about this drop down here. So I can reduce the size of my brush either by using the size slider or by typing in a pixel value to adjust the size of my brush. So I'm going to scale down the size of my brush, maybe to about 15 pixels, something like that. And then notice that my circle on my cursor is smaller. So the cursor is actually an indication of the size of the brush. Okay? So I'm going to deselect here one more time, Controller-Command-D on my keyboard. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll go and find another object and I'll start painting in yet another selection, something like that. And boom, pretty quickly, there's my entire object selected. The other cool thing about this this selection tool or this selection method is I'm going to call him additive. So in other words, if I make a selection here, this bolt with the washer rusted right onto it, I've got that object selected. I can now move my cursor towards another object. Notice my cursor has the crosshair. That's actually a plus, indicating that if I go and select another object, I now have 2 objects selected. So I'm continually adding to my selection, something like this. Maybe what it is that I'm after is I want to select all of these rusty objects, or perhaps some of these rusty objects, and then I want to pull them off of the background inside this image, and I want to go and copy and paste them or move them into another document, something like this. Okay? So in any regard, there you go. There's your quick selection tool, making quick work of your selections.